Hello and welcome back to the Undercut podcast. You're thinking about window lickers again, aren't you? You were halfway through a sip and you thought of it. We're back to preview the seventh Grand Prix of the year, the Spanish Grand Prix, and the last Spanish Grand Prix to be held at the circuit Barcelona de Catalunya for quite some time. I say we, I'm your host this evening, Jesse Billington, and joining me once again is none other than Mr. Timo Albers Daly. How are you?
Quite tickled and ready for the Spanish Grand Prix. There's a surprising amount of news, most of which has actually arrived ahead of the podcast record. Would you believe it? I mean, even if something comes afterwards, we have the majority, it feels like. And I'm not tempting the universe by saying that because we have big news that we have to go through. So it's refreshing. How are
Yeah,
you?
I'm very well. I spent yesterday at the London Concours. It was absolutely lovely, looking at some fantastic cars, lovely classic cars on the lawns there. Lovely evening out with my girlfriend afterwards. Worked through today, and then the FIA, FOM, the teams, the power unit manufacturers have all decided for once to not shaft us and wait until we've finished recording to come out with big news. And instead, before we went into the recording, came out with the big news, and that is that they have all agreed on a package of changes to the Formula One technical, sporting, and financial regulations for 2027 and 2028. These all revolve around essentially changing the power limits and the power modes that teams will be able to deploy through the engines, and importantly, changing the balance in where that power comes from, shifting it more in favor of the internal combustion units, the ICE sort of elements to this. And well, given the amount of problems we've seen with it now supposed to be a 50-50 balance, and the cars are very quickly running out of electricity, so they're just on 50% power, this is probably good news. So the fundamentals of it are 2026, 400 kilowatts is supposed to come from the internal combustion engine, with a further 350 kilowatts or so from the electrical units, roughly a 53 to 47% sort of ratio. For 2027, there will be an increase in fuel flow of 5%, meaning the internal combustion engines will be producing 420 kilowatts of power, and the electrical power will be decreased. So the max power you'll be able to use is 300 kilowatts. The overtake mode will be 350, and the maximum harvesting power will be 375. So it'll be harvesting more than you can ever really deploy, meaning you shouldn't end up in those strange scenarios where the battery has depleted. That gives you a split in favor of the ICE units in 58 to 42%. And then by 2028, fuel flow increases once more by 13%. We have 450 kilowatts of power, and the ICE units are still capped at 300 kilowatts, max power, 350 deployment, and harvesting goes up even higher to 400 kilowatts, and we get to a 60-40 ICE MGUK split. And this should mean that the racing is a lot more energetic. And importantly, we don't see the super clipping coming in. We see cars able to stay on full throttle down the long straights, and it doesn't have that weird tailing off before you get to the braking zone. So we're going to see a lot faster one lap qualifying sessions, and equally when it comes to racing, it's not going to be about who's saved a bit of juice. It's going to be about who's latest on the brakes into those braking zones. And I think that's going to be a really exciting development. And importantly, they announced it before we recorded.
Could hopefully mean as well, in theory at least, the situations we had in, say, Australia, where we had the glorious first third, let's say, of the Grand Prix of Russell and Leclerc going back and forth and back and forth. That should last longer, at least in theory. It's if that's going to stop, it's more likely because of tyre strategy or pit lane strategy or some safety car involvement of some kind. It's not going to be, well, that's all we've got. So that's all we can do on that one. And off you go, Mercedes. We'll leave you to it. It should hopefully sort that out a bit more, but we are just going to have to wait and see, unfortunately. But in theory, a step in the right direction. I know that obviously a lot of people are not mind about this regulation set and would rather that it all just get scrapped in the bin, but it's not happening. And I'm very much someone that until the thing comes in, which it now has done, it will, you know, prepare for the worst, hope for the best. But once it's there, it's there. I'm not in a position to change it. Most other people aren't in a position to change it. So if you don't like it, you can go and watch something else for a couple of years. There's plenty of other things available. But as this is going to be what it is for now, try and do the best we can with what we've got, and hopefully it gives us something that's entertaining for longer. That's I'm always an optimist.
Yeah, I think the important thing they've worked to do is, like you said, reduce what we saw in certainly the opening three rounds of this year's season, where it was that case of you have a really good opening 12 laps where everyone's got all the electricity, and then suddenly no one has electricity and it just becomes a stalemate. And obviously they can't scrap the regulations because teams have spent 5 years building up to these.
Mm.
They obviously built the
A lot of
previous,
money.
yeah, the previous set of regulations, then tweaked them over a few years with then a mindset for the 2026 regs, including the regulations that lured in the likes of Audi and Cadillac as
Mm.
significant sort of manufacturing partners in this. And obviously, you can't
And
then just
Ford, for
go,
that matter, as well.
yeah, yeah, Ford as well for the certainly on the electrical side of things. You can't then just go, oh, by the way, we're getting rid of that. You've come here for nothing. Basically, you've come here for one very expensive year of Formula One. Goodbye. So it's fair that they've started to bleed this in to give teams time to prepare for it, and I think we're going to see a very interesting shift. And equally, I think this is going to also see a shift in how drivers perform because obviously we've seen this set of regulations. I don't want to say as strongly as this. I want to sort of caveat it with like a pinch of salt. But obviously, there are certain drivers that have gelled very well with this style of racing in a car that has become very pliable for them. And it's taken a lot of very good drivers a while to cotton onto this style of racing, and other drivers are still cottoning onto it. If we shift back to an
But
old style
interestingly,
of,
it's not been a case of just one type of driver has been benefiting it from the others. It's not, the less experienced younger drivers taking to it and running away with it. You have Antonelli at one end of that scale, but then you've got Lewis on the other end of it, and you
mm,
go, they're both managing it quite nicely. But then you have that big middle section,
mm,
and you wonder how much of that is down to, what is it BC always likes to say is course drivers are going to complain when the car's not there for them. If they were in one of the good cars, they wouldn't be saying anything. And you do always wonder how much of that comes into these sorts of things. And you look at teams that put a lot of time and effort into the cars for this regulation. So, we were having high hopes for Williams on track this year. They were maybe a bit too ambitious, according to Alex Albon, with what they were trying to do. But you got to think that they're a team that they want to see this through now because they've spent so much time and effort and money getting into what is not perfect, but you could see that they know what's wrong with their car. They can now find a development path, and they're admittedly 30 points off E5, which is Alpine at the moment. Tall order, not too tall an order at the same time. So you want to see, can that development gap be bridged, and how quickly can that happen? Whilst Alpine's also doing its thing, so there's a lot of fascinating elements to it, and it would be a shame in some respects to have that just be a big what if.
mm. I think certainly the driving style of it's very interesting because we know these cars super clip going into the corners, and what it promotes is I wouldn't say a relaxed driving style, but one that's a lot more flowing and encouraging of this idea of maintenance of pace, a lot more GT spec, which is possibly where we're seeing sort of Verstappen now he's clicked with it, starting to really find some pace. With Lewis, he's a seven-time world champion. He'll figure the car out and
He
get up
knows
to
how to
speed.
drive a car.
Yeah, and with Kimi Antonelli, I think the very aggressive style of the previous generation of cars, where he binned it on his opening try in Monza in FP1 in 24, struggled with it in 25, but now it's got a different style. It's that very flowing, very neutral, balanced nature where you have to sort of learn to preserve the momentum to keep that sort of power unit under you, is very him. And it's working
It's
quite
also a
nicely
car that
for
he'll
him,
have had for the first time a bit of a hand in its
developing.
design and its development exactly. So
So
he's able to tailor it slightly more than he would have done with last year's car.
and
Same with
equally,
Lewis.
yeah, and equally, if you look at, say, a closer team pairing, Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris
Hmm.
likes of certainly a very active car underneath him, whereas Piastri prefers a slightly more languid sort of setup where you can just sort of focus on maintaining that pace and having a very steady, fluid race. This is a car style that certainly sits more in his favor. And if we look at the on-track results, I think that's something that is also reflected there. So this sort of shift in the power unit could bring some changes with it that open up some other avenues. So if you're George Russell, don't panic, sunshine. There might be hope on the horizon when Kimi Antonelli suddenly has a very snappy car that's got an additional 15% fuel flow and a big hike in power, and all of a sudden you're back to dealing with something that feels a bit like that ropey Williams of 2019, and you know how to wrangle it on track, or the very snatchy, on the limit 2020 Mercedes that, while it was a world beater, did take a lot of mastery. that feels like we could be opening the door for, again, some different storylines of driver involvement and development over a season. So
Hmm.
I think long term, while this is a bit FIA holding their hands up and going, okay, yeah, might have got that one a bit
I
wrong.
think they've got to do that. You look at Formula E and Extreme E as the two other kind of main examples of that. Neither one got it right immediately, and they were new series, so they could get away better with saying and putting hands up, okay, yeah, we need to go and fix this, this, and this. But you saw it if you ran for round in Extreme E, they'd go, okay, that's not worked. Cool, we'll go and tweak that. We've got a couple of months until the next one. Let's go sort that out. And they just kept doing it, kept doing it, kept doing it. Same with Formula E. We don't have the case of a car doesn't make it to the end of the race because of power anymore. They don't have to swap cars mid race so they can go off and finish it. So it's maybe still not where people want Formula One to be. Fine, but you got to try these things, and it's ultimately, hopefully, pushing things in the right direction. And on the drivers front as well, any new drivers coming in, regardless of if it's a rookie from Formula Two or if it's also a rookie from Formula Two, but you know what I mean, Colton Herta,
Yeah.
sort of from an IndyCar perspective, you will not have the same kind of troubles that you might have had before. You're all sort of coming in on the same wavelength.
Mm. And equally, it's not like every time we bring in new regulations to Formula One, there are problems. The previous generation had horrible
Mm.
effects with porpoising. If you look at the generation before that, there was a lot of problems with sort of monitoring fuel flow, coolant packages. There's been problems every time we bring it in, and that's half of it is it's supposed to be a development game, and you have that communication. You go, look, we simply cannot go racing with this. What leeway can you give us? And we will work to that. We're engineers, we'll design and find our way around it. Um, from that positive news to some rather tricky news that I only want to touch on a surface level because this goes on for quite some time. It's an incredibly long read. I think the paper, certainly in the UK, that broke this and sort of laid it out in clear detail is The Guardian. So if you're looking for this, I'd suggest searching for The Guardian and who really controls the Williams F1 team. A bitter legal battle has put this question center stage. And the problems around this center on a former executive at Dorilton Capital, Claudia Schwartz. I think I'm allowed to use sort of her name and obviously the company in this because that's public knowledge at this point. That's sort of that's not supposed to be sort of secretive. Obviously, Dorilton Capital now owns Williams, and Schwartz was fired as Williams' chief marketing officer in November 2022. And she has since sort of come forward to The Guardian to share her full story. And essentially, Dorilton are claiming that she took 6.9 million in expenses and inflated fees, and sort of the CEO of the race team's holding company looked the other way to allow essentially fraud, and she's hit back and gone, well, that's all horse. Also, did you know that the guy running Dorilton is an incredibly, I think, problematic character, really undersells the matter. Essentially, uh, the, he's incredibly racist, I think is the only way that I can put this in any straightforward sense. Is that yeah, basically there's a large number of very unsavory characters
He's got
hiding,
views that people would disagree with.
yeah, hiding around the back of sort of the Williams investment and sort of management team. Where here we go, found the section here. So this was a conversation held between Schwartz's hospitality and marketing team that the investor is furious and made clear that this is not the quality of people he and the board want to see in the paddock clubs. This is about Wycliffe Jean and Shaggy, who were performing at a sort of Williams Racing Grand Prix opening event at the US Grand Prix in 2022. And interesting enough, they were also performing alongside Canadian pop star Robin Thicke. Nothing said about Robin Thicke. If you know Wycliffe Jean and Shaggy, you might be able to see where this is going. This is essentially racially motivated. Um, they've all tried to put that to bed or sort of put it aside as personal beliefs. However, it goes further than that, along with the idea that they can't have any fan activations in the LGBTQ plus community because the Saudis wouldn't accept this and they have a significant money invested in Williams. Um, and yeah, people have suggested that limiting marketing based on race and sexual orientation would limit revenues, not increase them. And then sort of yeah, there's been even to the point of going back to the race thing, the fact that the owners and people behind Dorilton said that they would rather sell the team before let it become part of the Hamilton Commission. Obviously, this is the commission set up by Lewis Hamilton to encourage people from backgrounds beyond sort of Caucasian males, such as you and I, to get into Formula One and motorsports engineering. Very good commission, something I genuinely support. I think it's a worthwhile thing to be doing. I personally have no problems against that. Apparently, the people behind Dorilton do. Um, so yeah, essentially, there's a 132-page report that floats around in this. There is the full long read story on The Guardian, and it's all teetering on this very strange sort of boundary of something's about to come crashing down at Dorilton, and is there enough separation between them and Williams? Ugh.
It'd be quite interesting to be in the viewing gallery for this.
In theory, there's every chance that it could be a public thing, and there'd be nothing stopping us heading along to it and reporting from it. And I mean, I got
I
like
wasn't even thinking on that side of things. I was just thinking
just a watch.
purely because some of what I was hearing there was just I want to hear the arguments of
Yeah,
of various parties. I want to understand the points of view just to see.
yeah. Even to the point that one of the people behind Dorilton got in touch with Business F1. So you remember we had a run-in with Business F1 when they were talking about women getting into motorsports, and they figured the best way of doing this was a series of salacious pictures and basically slamming Susie Wolff for Formula One Academy being pants. Business F1, relatively terrible magazine, not hugely fond of the people who run it. I'm not trying to sort of
No,
maintain a professional relationship with them. Um, they were encouraged, supplied the information to produce a story called A Vixen Who Infiltrated Williams. So this was essentially the almost libelous story, but let's say, about Claudia Schwartz and her role in Williams and the $6.9 million that went astray. So this is all information that might have been fed to them, let's say, and problems that arose from there. So uh, it's yeah, really a very sticky and horrifying situation that might have long-term damaging effects on Dorilton Capital, which I couldn't give two hoots about. The problem is they own the controlling stake in Williams. If there is damage done there, what happens to Williams?
two thoughts. First of all, I'm wondering if Haas have gifted their monkey paw to Williams. It seems that the bad luck they used to have has transferred somewhat. And also, you say what happens? Do I finally get my wish and we get Porsche Williams in Formula One as a
Mm,
result of all of this? Because if so, there's silver linings.
I mean, Porsche did look at joining Formula One around the same time as Audi, and Volkswagen Group told them to back out of it because Volkswagen Group didn't want two competing Volkswagen brands in the sport. But
And by that time, it's gonna it won't be an overnight thing. These things never are. By that time, they'll have mellowed.
And also, let's say if this all does go Pete Tong, the affordability of buying the Williams namesake and its components might become altered. Or
Not quite broad GP levels, but
no.
certainly between there and McLaren.
Yeah, to the point that Porsche might be able to look at investing in it without it seeming like an outrageous gamble. Yeah. If you're interested in it, go find the Guardian story, give it a good read, sit down with a cup of tea, properly read through it because it's mind-boggling the people that have are running Dorilton, the personal views they uphold, and the ways that they are implemented in the way that Williams runs its hospitality. And this is where it becomes a problem. It's not just the fact that the person who runs Dorilton is horrible, it's the fact that it's so actively trickled down
Because,
to
personal views
the team.
perfectly fine. You can disagree with them, but as long as they don't impact the business,
Yeah,
that's when it starts becoming problematic.
and it's impacting not just Dorilton Capital at this point, but it is now starting to
Hmm.
impact Williams in the way that they interact with fans and the performers they have at live events. And you start to go, okay, there isn't a line we can draw here when you're saying no. If we're having a live music event to launch our US Grand Prix, I don't want any black artists on the stage. And you're going, oh, okay, so that's gone beyond just your personal views now, and that is something that clearly reflects upon the team, and that's a struggle. And yeah, we'll see where it goes. I don't want to say any more because this feels like it's the sort of thing that could go to court relatively soon, and anything we say as functionally journalists could be seen as libelous. So we've got to be very careful on what we say around this. So we're going to leave it there, read the story, come to your own conclusions, and I'm sure you'll come to the same conclusions as us that maybe this chap is rather unsavory and not someone you want to be associated with in a business or personal sense, let's say. I think we're allowed to say as much. Speaking of legal issues, we mentioned on the podcast last time round that Charles Leclerc was having problems with his brakes in Monaco, and Ferrari's main brake partnership is with Brembo. And there was speculation that maybe Lewis Hamilton has moved back to, was it Industry Carbon or Carbon Industries, who used to supply brakes when he was at Mercedes and had a bit more confidence in the car and has got it all bedded in and set up. Since Charles Leclerc's sort of outburst and comments, Brembo have seen a bit of a tanking in stock. Um, and this has genuinely been able to, it's a sort of noticeable market trend that has been sort of tracked, as well as I sent you two screenshots on this. Was it yesterday? Yeah, so Brembo sort of hit back with a picture of Niki Lauda in the Ferrari 312T at the 1975 Monaco Grand Prix, which was Brembo's first Formula One win, where they were relying on cast iron discs. Someone reposted it with a picture of Charles Leclerc having backed that very same car into the wall at the Monaco Historic, which was quite funny. And yeah, since then it's all got a bit awry. I'll see if I can just find the numbers quickly on the Brembo sort of finances because we might have gotten to this story quite early, it seems, and it's all gone a bit wonky since then. Um, do, 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 do. There we go. Brembo's market cap has dropped roughly 200 million euros in the 48 hours following the Monaco Grand Prix. So, yeah, while I might have been working off a strong rumor out of the paddock, it seems that that rumor might have been relatively well founded. Brembo, there was even a statement from Brembo Group as well, more than just the sort of light-hearted tweet of the 75 Grand Prix. Brembo Group is really surprised by the statements made by Charles Leclerc after the F1's Monaco Grand Prix. The partnership between Brembo and Scuderia Ferrari has continued for more than 50 years and also extends to other brands within the group, including AP Racing Clutches and Öhlins Dampers, confirming the strength and breadth of this long-standing collaboration. At present, the company does not know the causes of the issues experienced by Charles Leclerc and therefore considers it premature to draw definitive technical conclusions before the available data has been analysed. And there is a lot to back this up because through the 2025 season, Lewis Hamilton did say that it was pot luck as to what brakes you got on your car at any given weekend. There was a huge inconsistency in the parts that Brembo were supplying, and it looks like that has continued. And now that it's gone public, it sort of puts a lot of people in a very tricky place.
There's a lot within the last 10 minutes or so of the podcast, let's say, that one might call coincidence if one believed in such things,
Yeah. Um,
which is interesting as
it,
an observation.
yeah, I don't think a lot of the Brembo stuff is coincidence, and I think it's easier to talk on that when it's not quite as legally a grey area. I think it's speculation within a sport that's perfectly acceptable, and yeah, it's interesting that it's already had such significant effects on sort of market
We
caps.
saw we saw the inverse of this as well, obviously, when it was first announced that Lewis was joining Ferrari,
Yeah,
and so Leclerc also has some power, it would seem.
yes, yeah, yeah. It's I mean I fitted Brembo brakes to my Suzuki because they were essentially a small upgrade over
That's
this.
the best advertisement,
I
considering how
don't
many
know.
problems that has.
Yeah, but to be fair, its brakes have been perfectly fine. In fact, they were very good when I upgraded the front discs and pads. But the fact is that it's a consumer part that you can simply go out and buy. I'm not saying that you can go out and buy the vented carbon discs that you fit to a Formula One car, but they are also just a part supply to for generic or road-going vehicles. It is something that people interact with and will be able to sort of vote with their feet. If you see Brembo brakes failing on an F1 weekend, you don't think, you know what? When I need to buy some new parts for my car, I'll buy those ones. It's very much that sort of the risk you take with advertising in motorsport.
Or if you hear a driver claiming that it's the brakes that let down the car during a race weekend.
Yes, yeah, very much that same thing. It's the gamble you take when you insert yourself into motorsport advertising as an automotive component supplier. Whereas when you see like MotoGP riders have enormous crashes and their race suit protects them perfectly and the airbag deploys really well and they simply get up and walk away, you go, that's a pretty good set of leathers. Whereas when someone's brakes fail going through Anthony Nogues and they hit the barrier, you sort of go, probably won't be fitting those to my car. But anyway, on to your lot more light-hearted and easier to digest news. Um, and a slightly more positive story out of Williams. Alex Albon marks his Mansell milestone with an inspired helmet. So this is Alex Albon reaching the same number of race starts for Williams as Nigel Mansell, one of the team's most iconic drivers
Oh,
of.
he's already reached it. He's surpassing it this
Yes,
weekend.
this is as he surpasses it. This is the symbolic passing of the torch, let's say, with Nigel Mansell also going along to the helmet unveiling, and there was lovely shots of the two of them with the helmet and Alex in the car. It's nicely timed as well, as this year also marks the 40th anniversary of the Brummie driver scoring his first home victory at a Capacity Brands Hatch. The FW11 from that event will be on display at the London Historic Trophy later this month if you want to head along and have a look at it. Lots of other classic racing going on, but it's nice. We're going back to Mansell Mania for sort of a few bits and pieces this year. It's nice. Everyone enjoys that. That's nice.
We see this with a few teams where they bring in their old drivers for whatever reason, and it's the second weekend in a row. We've seen obviously McLaren had that last time out in Monaco. We see that with Mansell now for albeit a smaller reason, but nice nonetheless. Kind of insane that before the summer break is done, Albon will have in theory done 100 Grand Prix with Williams alone. Um, but yeah, it's a nice helmet. You always want Williams to do well on track with everything because it's a proper old school racing team that is well overdue on some success. And we see flashes every now and again. And, we have not had the best season as Williams fans so far. But I like the fact that they've been continuously open about what's gone on that side of things. Gone, yeah, we maybe bit off a bit more than we could chew. But again, I think I said this about Leclerc last time out in Monaco. The way he drives there more so than other places is a bit Senna-esque in terms of finding where that limit is and going over it just to see where it is for certain. Williams seemed to have taken that approach slightly with the car development with this set of regulations. They wanted to get them so right and jump the gun so far that they were overly ambitious, not quite ambitious, but rubbish in the sense of their old Top Gear. But um, I like that they've kind of over delivered in that aspect rather than not trying hard enough, and that be the reason. So they at least can see, okay, we know where to dial back, we know where to increase things, da, 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 da. And now we've got an interesting hunt on, as I referred to earlier, with they're 30 points away from Alpine, who are in P5, which you'd think is roughly where they're gonna end up if they were gonna be anywhere at a maximum point in the constructors. Now we talked about Alpine maybe chasing down McLaren or Red Bull. Um, but if that doesn't happen, then that upper P5 is on again. And you'd think Williams, out of the teams that are ahead of them, you've got Racing Bulls, you've got Haas, and you've got Alpine. They've got the strongest lineup, you would argue. Definitely the most experienced lineup. So that's going to be quite an interesting thing to see between now and wherever the season ends. We still don't know 100% for certain, I think,
It's ending in Abu Dhabi. It's how much we
at the
do
time of
before
recording.
at the time of record. No, it has to because Abu Dhabi has the contract to have the final Grand Prix. The problem is how much can you squeeze in before it, and equally how much is the
Well,
buyout of that contract as well. Um, if there
presuming
is
you can get there.
Yes, we may end up just simply packing in that section because there's still doubts over whether or not we'll go to Baku.
This year, we're calling the Las Vegas Grand Prix the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix for no reason whatsoever. We just thought it'd be a fun way to rename it for a one-off appearance.
The Las Vegas Grand Prix sponsored by Abu Dhabi, I think would be, yeah, maybe they'd get away with that.
There's a team of lawyers working around the clock trying to figure that out, I'm sure.
There's a lot of very busy lawyers in the Formula One sphere at the moment. But yes,
We got in the wrong profession.
Oh, I don't have the mental capacity for law. I've barely got the mental capacity for podcasting, let's be real. Um, anyway, moving on from Albon having a lovely helmet to a different sort of helmet, Dan Ticktum. He's been handed a formal disciplinary warning by his own team at the Formula E Monaco round, despite scoring pole twice. All the Brit bagged was 6 points for Cupra. Ticktum's radio rants across the weekend throughout overshadowed the occasion, and the outfit has since issued him with a second formal warning. The first, I believe, came at the Mexico round.
Always amuses me because, you know, if you purely base it off the team radio stuff, he makes Formula 2 Hadjar look like a nice, sweet, thoughtful boy.
Yes,
And anyone who's listened to Hadjar at F2 is going, whoa.
that's saying something. Yeah. Ticktum left the track after parking his car in Parc Ferme on Saturday, stopping briefly to change, and this is the official quote from a Paddock Insider. And video viewers will see that I'm using air quotes here, rearrange his driver changing area before leaving. Again, infer from that sentence what you will, skipping the mandatory media commitments and team debrief. Um, if this goes on and Cupra bench the Brits, they're in dire straits with few options of replacement. One is Jake Hughes, who's currently without a drive and did test for them in the off season, and the other is Bianca Bustamante, their development driver. And yeah, I
That'd be a
mean,
great way to, switch the PR narrative. You then have the first female Formula E driver for not quite a full season, obviously, but for the remainder of the season.
hmm. Yeah, for more than
Just
just
saying,
like
there's
a
there's
show
there's
off
there's, there's good
FP1.
options there. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's not just a testing session or a
yeah,
demo run. It's so that you're in the car. Let's go.
it's a competitive seat away you go. The only way you're going to learn is by racing. Off you go, sunshine. But also a lot of this comes down to sort of the team's function and the way they set up the car and build a race weekend. And Cooper have admitted that there are shortcomings on their half. However, I think it's quite short-sighted of Ticktum to not think that it'd be useful to be at those engineering debriefs where he explains the problems instead of just storming off and not telling them. Like,
There are many things that baffle many people about him and will continue to do so and have done so already for many, many years.
yeah. Um, for newcomers to the world of single-seater motorsport, I suggest you go and find out what I think it was Will Buxton once christened Dan Ticktum.
Was it
Uh,
another excellent quote from him? I'm going to have to go and remind myself of that later.
I will leave you to go and remind yourself of that later, or I will find it and send it to you. I believe it was Will Buxton that came up with this one, and Mr. Ticktum wasn't too pleased about it, although his behaviour has kept up that track record. Um, Meanwhile, we mentioned the Bianca Bustamante has obviously run in some sort of test sessions for Cupra. When it comes to FP1 this weekend at the Spanish Grand Prix, there is a long list of driver outings. We have one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. So over half the grid will be swapping drivers for FP1. Paul Aron is on loan from Alpine to Audi, and he'll be driving in FP1 at Barcelona and Spielberg the round following. Ayuma Iwasa will hop into Isaac Hadjar's RB22 for the weekend, or just for the opening round, really. Dino Beganovic will hop into the Ferrari in place of Lewis Hamilton. Luke Browning will take part in FP1 too for Williams, as well as in Austria. Leonardo Fornaroli, someone we haven't mentioned for quite a while, will be running the number 6-7. Do the hand thing to take to the circuit for McLaren at the Spanish Grand Prix, and Fred Vesti is at Mercedes in place of Kimi Antonelli. Meanwhile, Cadillac are installing Colton Herta for an optimistic running in place of Sergio Perez.
I always like it when they do these because they tend to not just have one or two drivers. They always seem to just throw them all in at the same venue. You see it here, you see it usually then in Texas and Mexico and
Mexico.
Abu Dhabi. Um, of these ones, it's always interesting as well to look at who do you think would actually get into seat in the future. Paul Aaron obviously has been linked with Alpine in the past. I think still is in some way, shape, or form.
He
Wouldn't
very
mind seeing
nearly,
him there.
yeah, very nearly
Ideally took
replaced
Colapinto's seat,
Colapinto.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um, I can't see him being at Audi, but I could see him being at Alpine. I think that would just be interesting. Iwasa, awkwardly now, I don't see any room for him because it's the first time since I want to say 2014 that I or they have been happy with the entire driver lineup for both of their
Red Bull
teams, and they're all
RB.
doing
Yeah,
pretty well. Beganovic, Browning, and Vesti, I don't see it personally. Fornaroli, I would love to see him in a McLaren. Not going to happen, I don't think. But I think he does deserve a shot in F1. I just don't know where. And obviously, Cadillac with Herta, he's probably going to replace Perez at some point. If it's not him, it's going to be Bottas. He's going to be in the car. They're determined to make that happen the same way that Toto is convinced he's going to get Antonelli in that car one way or another.
Mm.
Um, so not surprising there. And I'm always interested to see how they do, especially then when you compare those times to how the regular drivers will do an FP2. You know, one session against another, new cars, new regs, track that they're all very familiar with, bar, say, Colton Herta. But apart from that, quite interesting.
Yeah.
So I always, it's a good reason to watch FP1.
It's always going to be a bit exciting, and I love seeing what their designated three-letter moniker is on the timing tower as well. Like, sort of
Hmm.
how do they
Well,
identify
Herta's going to be her.
her? And you always get Bro for Luke Browning, and I guess Beg for Beganovic, four for Fornaroli. It's always quite funky. Ilwa for Iwasa is a fairly common one. Arrow for Aaron. It's kind of funky. It's just a fun little thing. And again, you see some drivers have their specific numbers, some have just the team's testing number. And again, it's that really exciting thing of also seeing how well these drivers communicate, because I always bang on about this a lot. Actually, I think it's the amount of racing drivers I speak to. One of the key things they always go back to is communication, and this is a great time for Formula 2 drivers to learn that great skill of communication with the pit wall, with your engineer. And certainly with an FP1 where they're looking to do sort of set up a bit of aero testing, possibly bed in some new parts, the team will be looking for feedback. And importantly for Cadillac with Herta, who is their test and
I was
development
going to
driver.
say, especially for him, because he's one of the more experienced test and development drivers you could have. You know, you're not just a Formula 2 driver, you're an IndyCar race winner and championship contender at points who's been there for what, 7 or 8 seasons or something up until that point. So he's going to have very unique feedback. That might be just what they need, considering, as we were saying earlier, about the regs and how they're going to change. There's so many different development pathways. There's clearly a right way to do it with Mercedes, but we don't know yet that that is the only right way. This isn't 2022. Oh, this is clearly not going to work, but we're going to develop this anyway and just see what happens kind of development. We don't know that yet.
Or if
So
you look
that's
at,
going to be quite
yeah,
interesting.
or if you go development pathways, if you look at the generation prior to the ground effect era, where we had it was either the high rake approach cars or the very level low rake
Hmm.
approach cars. There was those two pathways you went down that it tailored how you designed your wings and your side pods and your floor because of how you had the car attacking the air, and it was one of those interesting things. Um, so yeah, the FP1 well worth the watch when it comes starts on Friday. In fact, if you're in the UK, I will be able to tell you exactly what time it kicks off because I have it all on my calendar. FP1 will kick off at 12:30 here in the UK. If you're up before 9 o'clock, 8:55, it's F3 practice. At 10:05, it's F2 practice, and then there'll be a bit of a gap and the build up to FP1, and well worth a watch. Then it quickly goes into F3, F2 qualifying, and then FP2 if you want to have a bit of comparison in the middle. Um, Obviously, we're heading to Spain for this sixth round of, no, seventh round of the Formula One season. And this is the last time that we'll be heading to Circuit Catalunya for the Spanish Grand Prix. Following this, it's well worth noting, and I'm sure it'll be mentioned across the weekend, that we will be visiting Madrid's Madring, which does sound like a terrible cocktail involving Madri lager, for the first time in September, which will then take over as the Spanish Grand Prix host for the foreseeable future, I think is how it's sort of been termed.
It does sound like a weird rival to Birmingham's ring, which I
Mm.
don't think anyone asked for.
Or sort of like a Nürburgring, Hockenheimring, Red Bull Ring. You can see what they're trying
But
to do.
yeah, yeah, it's kind of when you want to give yourself a nickname because no one else has given you one,
Yeah,
and you go,
it's
"That's not going to quite fly.
yeah,
We'll decide what we're calling you."
yeah,
And it's not going to be
yes,
Madring, I don't think.
yeah. I don't know if you've seen the onboards from the sim racing World Cup where I think it was Alpine's
No,
driver recently did the Madring circuit, and for interesting reasons, a lot of bits have got privacy boxes over them, obscuring track layout and sector times and car setup details. Um, Entirely unclear why. Maybe they're not confident that people are going to like the
not been
Madrids.
built yet.
That also, no. Carlos Sainz did a lap of it the other day in a Mustang.
You can
It's
do a lot with technology these days. That's all I'm saying.
it didn't look particularly finished at the time, but let's put it this way: I think the
Was
campsite
there a
I've
Ken
spent
Block jump in the middle?
Yeah, there was a
It
lot of
wasn't
dirt
supposed to be there.
stages. Yeah. Well, this is what Monaco was. It was just trialing to see how drivers cope when it gets a bit loose surface, just ahead of when we get to the Madring in September. It's yeah, an interesting one. And then on far lighter note, also this weekend, keep an eye out for Racing Bulls as they have a new kit and livery for this weekend. And I say kit, meaning it in very much the football sense, because they have tied in with the World Cup. And I like it. It's not artistically great, but it's whimsical, and that counts for a lot in my book. It draws, apparently, inspiration from the visual language of football culture, aka the wheels look like the wheel trims off the Fiat Panda Italia 90. If you don't know what that is, Google it. This was also designed by Racing Bulls, like creator collective teams. They have like three people on the team that are basically like
Are these the
internet
same
content
people
creators.
responsible for their other special liveries this year?
I don't know. I haven't checked, so I couldn't speak on that. So. Mm.
I hope not for their sake, because it's 0 for 3, I think. I'm not a
The words of Timo Elvis Daily do not reflect those of the podcast or other
fan.
hosts on the podcast. But yeah, it's a unique look. The team kit also features a football badge inspired crest for VCarb FC.
I stand by my earlier comments.
Um, I mean, if you want motorsports crossover with the World Cup, have you
I
seen the
don't.
Indy?
Yeah, cool. Not
Yeah,
relevant. I'm there for IndyCar. I doesn't give a flying hoot about the World Cup or its interaction with motorsport in any guise. Putting IndyCar drivers in their flag's race suit is not relevant. We don't have a World Cup in IndyCar, so we don't need to bother. Until we talk about that, or we do the same for F1, who cares? It's
where's your
not, I am not the target audience.
where's your
And
sense of
that's
whim?
fine.
You need a sense of whimsy.
Nigel Mansell's my sense of whim. Watching him potter around is good fun.
He is your vestibule of whim.
Hmm.
Right. Anyway, with that out the way, it's time to make some. We've been chatting for nearly 45 minutes. It's time to put down some predictions ahead of the Spanish Grand Prix.
10 minutes of that was you trying not to get sued.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way to avoid that would have been not mention it at all, but that'd be kind of pointless in having some significant news and
If
something
you
not
cut that
talking
out now,
about
you've got to
it.
leave this bit in. And
Yeah,
then
this,
people are
yeah,
wondering, what on earth did they say? We need to go back and listen.
yeah, it's sort of like making a reference back to someone else's blooper. Now that's got to stay in. Predictions, pole position, Timo. I'll let you pick yours while I think of who mine's going to be. Oh,
I'm,
shocker.
I'm going for a strategy this weekend. I'm not sure what the strategy is, but my strategy for pole position is George Russell for pole position. I'll start sensible,
I
relatively.
Yeah, I've seen your prediction for the podium. Um, I'm going for Antonelli to take pole position. I think the kid's on a roll. Let's be real. There's
Hmm.
there's no way that a simple circuit like Barcelona is going to trip him up.
Now you've
Or
said it.
ah, but won't it be interesting? Let's see, I'm
Well,
trying
this
to.
is what I'm thinking of with my podium predictions because I've changed my fantasy team. I've subbed George out for Kimmy, going, okay, let's try and see what happens here. But and I've also put Kimmy on the podium because my predictions this year have not been good so far. So if I predict that he wins, either I get a point or we get an interesting race because he doesn't win. But on the off chance that I am right, and I'm leaning into that, we then get a double Spanish podium with Carlos Sainz in second and Fernando Alonso in third, and we really somehow got one of those Grand Prix, a little bit like Monaco in the sense of what on earth was that, but Kimi still won. So I'm trying to blend everything together.
Yeah, essentially playing all sides of the coin at once.
Trying to, and probably will lose all of them,
Yeah, the
knowing
coin's going to
how
land
I've
on.
done so far this year, both in this predictions game and in Fantasy F1.
Yeah,
Thankfully, doing much better in Fantasy IndyCar.
the coin is going to phase through the fourth dimension and discover a new side to itself, which is not one you've bet upon. Um, Meanwhile, when it comes to the podium, I'm going as well for the Antonelli win, but I can see this going down to the wire actually with Russell chasing him to the line. It's going to be close. I think everyone's going to be disappointed because they're expecting 2016 and it won't be. It will be too measured.
It'll be
Um,
2016, but it'll be the Red Bulls instead.
Yeah, it would just be sort of it would be what we almost got from Spain, but they will have dialed it back so much that we
From
lose out and it
Spain.
feels like a damp Canada, sorry, where we get sort of that really hot, fun battle, and then it's just dialed back where Mercedes
Hmm.
goes, "Don't be stupid," like the little guy through. Um, so
Petrov takes the lead.
Antonelli, Russell, and Piastri is on really strong form at the moment for getting solid results out of every race that his car makes it to the end of. So I think we could see him on the rostrum once more. So there we go. Antonelli, Russell, Piastri. It's sound. I think it could happen. Meanwhile, fastest lap with his new brakes that work, you reckon it's Lewis Hamilton?
Yeah, I just thought I'll try and balance out the podium a little bit and go for something semi-sensible and stick Lewis in for fastest lap. Whatever impact Kim's having on his life at the moment is clearly working, so I don't mind. Let's just keep it going. As long as it's got a positive impact, I can live with it.
Even if she did steal Kimi Antonelli's towel off of his podium
That
box
was
in
quite
the
funny.
Grand Prix. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to go for Nico Hulkenberg. And hear me out. Around Monaco, that car recorded the fastest outright top speed. We're going to Spain, where we've got that
Difference
big
is you
front
need to do that
straight.
with the whole lap.
No, just sort of like speed trap, just the fastest lap.
Yes, but
Yeah,
in order
but
to get the first lap, you do need to be quick everywhere, not just in a speed trap.
yeah, but there's a lot of big straight bits to Barcelona,
Yeah,
and
but
I think he could. It's like saying, yeah, you've got the fastest lap around the Avos ring. Yeah, it's only two turns, um, but
what a
I
circuit though.
a brilliant circuit. I think we could bring it back because imagine that with super clipping.
Hmm.
Imagine the second half of the
The
race.
yo-yoing would be
Yeah,
insane.
no, but the second half of the race where everyone's run out of battery and they're all like pegged at 140 down the back straight at Avis, just like falling asleep at the wheel. Um, yeah, Hulkenberg. The Audi's quick. I reckon it's going to be really interesting. Is it going to be interesting enough for Audi to score double points? I tried that at the Monaco Grand Prix. I was not lucky.
Didn't work.
No. So I'm going to avert my eyes from Audi for a brief moment and predict that both Alpines in the top seven, which is an oddly specific number, but it forces Colapinto's hand
Oh,
to get a strong result.
no, it just means he's going to do to you what he did last time and finish eighth.
Miami, yeah, and finish eighth.
I'm looking forward to you just not getting it again.
Hey, it'll be a double out points finish possibly for Alpine. What's your wild prediction though?
Oh, Cadillac points. They'll go from hero to zero, or from zero to hero, rather, which is the opposite of what they did in Monaco, which was be hero for 5 minutes and then go back to zero again, quite literally on the points tally. So now we're going to get double points. I don't know where, positioning wise. I'm not going to be a brash to see them say top seven. I'll just be grateful to see them ninth and 10th.
Hmm, yeah, fair enough. I mean, if I said sort of double Alpine points, you'd go, well, that's a bit wet. They've both scored points already this season, so I've got to add some
Oh,
level.
yeah. Well, yeah, but I'm saying relative to the team that's been chosen.
Yeah, it's got to be within the concept of the team that's done it. So I think we've got an interesting array of predictions laid out before us, and an interesting Spanish Grand Prix awaits because we all head to a familiar circuit with some still relatively unfamiliar cars. Bear in mind this is only round seven, and we didn't really test here, so we don't know what the
We
outline.
just had a shakedown.
Yeah, so which none of
But
it.
Williams didn't get here, so they're going to be quite interesting to watch.
But that's a very good point, and you've predicted Carlos Sainz to come second. So best of luck with that one. Um, There we go. Brings us neatly then to the end of this episode before we sort of start rumbling on for more than an hour. Um, we'll be back soon to review the Spanish Grand Prix. In the meantime, if people want more from you, Timo, where can you be found?
This time out, you can find me over on the Curbs, where I've got an interview with Veronique de Sifet, daughter of Josephet from the 1960s of Formula One.
Very nice.
Motorsport dynasty family going on there. Also got an interview out over on Is Race Week with Maya Berg, and then on Coast IndyCar, the St. Louis review. If you've all kind of got your blood pressure back down again after watching that excellent race.
Hmm. Should be very interesting indeed. Meanwhile, if you want more from me, you can pick up the latest issue of Classic Car Weekly. We've got a bumper edition that's out on sale at the moment, and you can listen to the Classic Car Weekly podcast. We're recording another episode of that later this week. We're recording on Friday this week. And you can find me on the internet as at Jesse on Cars on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. There'll be content going out on all those platforms. And if you're out and about on Saturday, I'm up at Midland Hurricanes versus London Broncos in the 1895 Cup. If you spot me, say hello. Otherwise, thank you very much for listening, and we'll be back after the Spanish Grand Prix with a review of all the action from Catalonia.
Oh, yeah. Just found a very amusing collaboration of some kind between some music company, might have even been Apple, and Lance Stroll for his pre-Grand Prix warm-up playlist, to which the top comment was an excellent graphic of the stonk sky, but with Stroll's face on, and the caption being number of windows licked. And I'm now quite cheered
Oh,
up.
the cold opens. That's absolutely perfect. I'm going to make sure I clicked record before we start all of these now because that was perfect. I'm so glad this was recording. Um,
Yeah, leave it there.
maybe I'll patch that in at the end as after
It's
the.
a it's a shame we don't have like a pre-title sequence because that would be the perfect point where you would just cut. It's
Yeah.
almost worth making a title sequence for.
Oh, I think it would sit well at the end as like a little Easter egg for anyone who listens, just sort of
Yeah,
leaves
yeah.
the
Mixer
podcast just to
Drive
bug
used to
on.
do that quite a bit. You'd get to the end of the music at the end, and then there'd be some outrageous thing that Ampere said.
Hmm. Just so people would go, wait, what?
Mm.
Um,
Just when
anyway,
you think it's skipped over to the next episode of whatever else they're listening to, and you just hear that.
if you are still listening to the podcast at this point, thank you for listening all the way to the end. We'll be back, as we mentioned, with a review of the Spanish Grand Prix. Now we're going to start the episode. So if you're listening to this backwards, this is all going to be very confusing. We're going to start the episode and preview the Spanish Grand Prix. Have you got your notes ready?